All right, Nicole, one of my favorite humans and sales and marketing expert. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right, so you've put together a slide deck and I'm super pumped. So I will hand the mic over to you.
Thank you. I apologize in advance if you hear any dog barking. It's 10:30, so the mailman comes like any minute now, but hopefully he'll behave, and I can always mute myself if we run into any trouble there. So thank you for joining. And I know that sometimes a seminar called like, oh, building trust sounds a bit, sounds maybe a bit boring. However, I've got a little bit of a twist to it for you to make it hopefully interesting in a way that maybe you've not explored in the past or heard about some of these strategies in the past. So let's dive in. You can see my screen, yeah?
Yep.
Awesome. You know, we have to obviously start our time off today by sort of establishing context and what is trust. I think we know, but there's some keywords that I think we need to identify before we move into the rest of the deck. And trust is really rooted in emotion. So when we think of trust, maybe we don't think of it as like an emotional thing, but it is an emotion describing how people feel about another person's authenticity and honesty. So I think the key word here is authenticity, because I think as business owners in a digital world, we're all trying to build authenticity with our audiences, and that can be very, very difficult. So let's hang on to that word as we move through the rest of the slide deck. So when we talk about gaining trust, we're all sort of aware of certain key components on how to do this. And here's some of them. So it's how you engage, right? So it's the way you interact with your audience, whether that's in person, through your digital spaces such as Facebook, Instagram, even Google, for example. So you build trust by engaging. You build trust by how you respond. So this is really key, especially in the digital world where you're actually being judged on how you respond to feedback, right? And if someone's giving you feedback, whether that's on Facebook, Instagram, or even Google reviews, the way you respond is how people are going to judge you. And that's another element of building trust with your audience. You also build trust by how you show up, right? So people are very aware of how to notice disingenuous behaviors. So people are very, very aware of how people are showing up. And so you can quickly erode trust if you display any of these disingenuous behaviors, right? I think we've all seen it and can identify when that happens. And then it's also on how you communicate, right? And typically, if you think about, you know, your best girlfriends, they probably communicate with you in a way that's very honest. Typically, it's an open dialogue, and there's lots of transparency, right? So when we think about our best friends, these elements usually pop up, right? Because a best friend is someone that you really, really trust. And so when we think about, those are the ways that we've sort of typically have grown trust with an audience, or like I said, with friendships. But let's take it a step further. And let's really make this useful for you in developing your strategy for your business and how you connect with your clients. So one of them is empathy. And we're going to dive into all of these three key strategies a little bit deeper. Empathy is a big one. We're going to dive into that. The magic happens during an intention statement, and I'm going to walk you through what that looks like. And lastly, how you demonstrate commitment to your customer. If you can master these three elements, you will be able to build trust very, very quickly within the first interaction versus having to go back to the table over and over again. You can actually move relationships forward a lot quicker by implementing these 3 strategies. So let's talk about empathy. It's actually the ability to understand people's feelings, but not just understand them, but you have to be able to go deeper. And it's actually feeling with other people. Now you're probably thinking like, Nicole, let's use Meredith as an example. Nicole, my team sells branding and websites and design elements. Why are you talking to me about empathy? How is this connected to my business and how I connect with my customer base? And is there a place for empathy in business? And this has been coming up more and more and more frequently. I argue yes, because typically someone is coming to you for a solution to a problem they're having difficulty solving. And typically there are emotions involved in that decision. Okay. Empathy allows us the opportunity to better respond to other people. We have a tendency to hear people's problems or challenges and quickly move to a solution. Empathy allows us to slow down and dig deeper. Okay. Rarely does an empathetic response start with at least. Okay, so let me try to use an example. So if we think about our best girlfriends, right? We're sharing a glass of wine and someone shares something that's very vulnerable, right? You may be sitting down with a glass of wine and your bestie says, oh, I've just had a miscarriage. And your response is, well, at least you can get pregnant. The drives connection, sympathy drives disconnection. And as humans, we have a tendency to better understand and we're better equipped with a sympathetic response. A sympathetic response would be, well, at least you can get pregnant. But that's not going deep with people, right? Another way to respond to emotional responses is, oh my gosh, I've never been in that position. But you know what? I'm really glad you told me, right? When we're dealing with business owners, you never really know how deeply rooted emotions can be, right? So for example, through COVID, maybe you've experienced dealing with a customer who lost their job and is reinventing themselves through a business. That business means everything to them. It's how they put food on the table for their kids. So that's why empathy plays a big role in how we develop connection and trust with our customers. I want you to, I'm going to give you some homework because that was part of the deal, right, Mary? So jot down the video, Brene Brown, Sympathy versus Empathy. It's really, really cool. She's got millions and millions of views, and it'll really drive this message home for a lot of you, I think. Okay, statement of intentions. We can't get to intentions without really exploring empathy and how we build that connection with our customers. But I think we've all, seen this and experienced it where we know that people don't want to be sold to, right? So how many times have you walked into a car dealership and you're kind of checking out the cool cars and all of a sudden out of your peripheral vision, you see the salesperson coming to you, and all of a sudden there's like a little pain in your tummy and you know exactly what that man or woman is about to do. They're going to sell me on this car. And today I don't want to be sold to. Today I'm exploring, right? This is to your customers. Your customers are actually anticipating you're going to sell them something with every single interaction. It can be on Instagram, it can be through a discovery call, whatever the case may be, your customers are anticipating a sell. What an intention statement does is it breaks that natural defense mechanism, right? We're able to just drop the armor and get down to business. Well, the outcome, that's where we can better state our intention. So if we drop the outcome, if this sale meant nothing to us, right? Like I could take it or leave it, right? Most of us are not in that position. We want every sale to come through. But if we drop the outcome for just a sec and instead stated our intentions, this is where you can break down those walls, break down those barriers really, really quick. Statement goes something like this. So before we jump in, I want to let you know I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm actually here to serve as a guide and a resource so that you can make the best decision for you and your business. Right? So I don't know if anyone on the call has had this experience. I've never been in a sales situation before where someone has approached me in this manner. But what an intention statement allows us to do is drop the defense mechanism so that when you're speaking to them, they can actually hear you. Because a lot of people have anxiety dealing with being sold to. Even though most times we've come to the table with a problem that we're struggling with, we still have a defense mechanism that comes into play when we're on the phone or when we're engaging through text messaging. It's there, right? So an intention statement allows us to just move past some of those barriers. Meredith, you came off mute. Do you want to?
Yeah, I was just going to ask two things. If you can send out this presentation after, if you're not comfortable with that, is that intention statement something you could just add to the chat?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I love that. Yes.
Yeah, okay. This is where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Stating your intentions. And then one step forward. So we've just looked at empathy, right? How we can go deeper with our customers and how we can really engage on a level that's very meaningful to build trust. The second one is through stating our intentions right from the get-go so that they know that we're not trying to sell them something. We're really there to serve them regardless of the outcome. Number 3 is demonstrating our commitment to them. So some of us might go, oh no, I'm really good. My customers know I've got them. But if you take a deeper look, do they really know that no matter what the outcome, you've got their back? So your customer wants to know that regardless if they buy today or maybe down the road, the time you spent with them is not wasted. This builds your pipeline, by the way. This is where those no's, the not today, become the 6 month, the 1 year customer down the road, right? Because we've demonstrated our commitment to them no matter what the outcome is. I've got your back no matter what. Here's how that goes. So Mr. or Mrs. Customer, if you decide that my services aren't for you, that's okay. I'm here to ensure that you have all the information you need to make a well-informed decision for you and your business, right? That way, now we've dropped the body armor even further. And they're like, okay, so regardless of the outcome, this person cares about me and wants the best for me in my business, right? This is how you build trust. Very, very quickly, by the way. All of this can happen within a span of like 10 minutes max. So again, less back and forth. Sometimes people feel like building trust is like a multi-step process where I've just showed you how to do it in 10 minutes or less, right? So hopefully you see a lot of value within this 3-step process, and I'm happy to share the slide deck with you guys after if you want to sort of take some pieces out of it for yourself. So if trust is the foundation, right? If that's where we start with our customers, I'm actually going to give you, where do we go from here? right? So it's all great that Nicole showed up and showed us how to build trust, but where do we take it from here? So if trust is the foundation, what's next? So this is a very typical sales cycle, right? So I think we've all maybe seen something like this, similar. Sometimes it's a 5, 6, 7-step process, but typically we get a lead and we celebrate, oh, we got a lead. Next, we're going to connect with them. The next step is, oh, we have to qualify them, right? We have to do a discovery call. I got to make sure they qualify for my business. Next, I'm going to present them solutions because they just told me all their problems, and guess what? I have what they need. Got to overcome all those objections that they're going to throw our way, but finally we'll get to the close. Okay, this is a very typical sales cycle. But what if we could make it simplified? What if I could give you 3 steps instead of 6 or 7? So here's another way to look at it. When we talked about empathy before, right? Building empathy and building trust into your business. This is how you build empathy and trust into your sales process, because we're going to call it connect, untangle, advance. Let's talk about connection. Guess what? We already learned it. So you've got 1 step out of 3. So connection is building trust through empathy and stating your intentions. So now you're going to be the connection experts. Building trust for you, no problem, I got it. Building empathy, I got it. Statement of intentions, I already wrote mine, it's all good. So you've already mastered connection. Now we have to untangle. Untangling our customers' ambivalence. This is where things get a little tough, right? What I mean by untangling ambivalence is, don't you find your customers, even though they have challenges, even though they've got problems and they come to us looking for solutions, sometimes they're unsure, right? They're like, should I stay? Should I go? Should I make a change? Should I not? Right? We're all doing that every single day. And I'll give you 2 examples. I think we've all done a diet, right? At some point in our lives, we've done, one of these like magic diets, right? But when we're ambivalent to change, what that means is I want to lose 10 pounds, but sitting in front of me is an apple and a donut. And what does my brain say? My brain says, I want to lose 10 pounds, but I really want the donut. And it's the head and the heart playing off each other all the time. This is human, right? This is human nature. It's built into our DNA. So your customers are no different. So yesterday I chose the donut. I have these beautiful apples I just bought at the grocery store. And guess what? I ate the toasted coconut donut. The next example is people who are moving. Whether you're moving out of an apartment, whether you're moving from our home or you're selling a home. We just sold our home and my head and my heart were conflicted. My head was saying the market's good, strike while the iron is hot. My heart said, no, I don't want to go because this is the home we built together. This is where we got married. This is when we got our first puppy. This is where we had all of our Christmases and family get-togethers, right? So I'm ambivalent to change because I'm thinking a lot, right? And your are the same. So this is emotional resistance to change. As business owners, it's up to us to help them come to a solution that makes sense for them without pushing. Because when we push, what happens? The laws of physics say we back up, right? So here's how to maneuver this. I think we've all been to a carnival where we've seen the whack-a-mole game, right? The moles pop up and we gotta whack them on the head to kill them. It's kind of awful, but that's the. And as business owners, we tend to play whack-a-mole with our customers. I've got a problem. My website just isn't where I want it to be. It's not functioning the way I want it. Boom, that's okay. We're on Squarespace. Everything, I'm going to solve all your problems, Squarespace. Oh, well, I don't really like the design elements because, you know, I designed it with like black and browns because that was in. Boom, that's okay. We're experts at branding and we'll make everything pink, right? We play the whack-a-mole game, and sometimes our customers are not interested in playing that game. They need us to listen, empathize, and, you know, build trust, state intentions, all that stuff. But now we've got to untangle some of this resistance, right? So instead of playing whack-a-mole, instead of just showing them the solution from the get-go, I want to challenge you to actually go with the skid. What I mean by this is that when someone presents you with something, a challenge, instead of coming up with the solution, go with it. Go with them. Let me give you an example. So I just said to you guys, I just sold my home. So the real estate agent sits in front of me and plays whack-a-mole with me. But that's okay. The market's good. But that's okay. You'll find a better house. But that's right. And on and on and on. That real estate agent sat down with me and said, it sounds like you're not sure. So what if you stayed? Why can't you stay? Why don't you stay in this house? Naturally, what would happen is that I would tell him, well, we've done all of our projects that we can do in this house. We're ready for our next adventure. We want to maximize on the market. All of a sudden, now I'm the one that's resolving my own ambivalence because he's just going there with me. He or she is just going with me. Let's use Meredith's business as an example. Somebody comes forward and says, oh, I need to change my website. It's just not working for me anymore. But they're ambivalent to change, right? Should I make this change? Should I make the investment, right? And so what if we just go with the skid? Well, why can't you stay with your current provider? Why can't you stay? Let's explore some options. Well, no, it's not going to work for me because, you know, the design elements aren't there. I can't get an email list to work with this one vendor. I can't, right? So now all of a sudden we're helping them untangle some of this stuff and they're coming to their own resolutions. It seems to be very counterintuitive because we're sort of trained to find out their pain points and then offer them a solution. We're not really trained to learn all their pain points and then give them the solution to just stay in their pain. Right? So this is where this is so much fun. And I want you to give it a try your next engagement with one of your customers. Go with the skid, go with them and see what happens. And it's really, really interesting to see it unfold in front of you. So now that we've helped them sort of untangle this ambivalence, should I make a change? Should I not? Where we can move forward. It's how we advance the sale to the next level. Now, let me go back. During the typical sales cycle, we talked about the close. And you'll hear a lot of sales gurus and people that are really familiar with sales say, oh yeah, it's all about the close, like ABC, always be closing. And my rebuttal to that is always be advancing. A close doesn't mean a signed contract. Close means that you've advanced the sale to the next logical step in the process. That could be they need more information from you. It could be that you need another meeting. It could be that you're going to follow up with them with a video that you've made for them, etc. It could also be a creative way of following up. So when you are building connection with your prospects and your customers, you're building trust, you're going deeper with them on a more emotional level, things are going to pop up, right? Themes, stories. Maybe they've told you some like intimate details about family, about business, about finances, right? Think about all those conversations you've had with like kind of strangers, but they've been able to open up to you about things that are a bit deeper. Maybe they're talking to you about where they're from, where they're moving, all kinds of stuff. It's an opportunity for us to tap into some of those connections we've made on a deeper level and follow up creatively with them on that. So a lot of us are familiar with the power of writing a handwritten note or sending a little thank you gift that really speaks to them. Instead of generic follow-up gifts like coffee cards or, anything generic that you can think of that someone has sent to you. A perfect example of this is, I'm not trying to pick on real estate agents, I promise, but I think this is just the best way for me to demonstrate it that makes sense to people. That real estate agents have been taught to send once a year, usually at Christmas, they'll send a calendar with a picture of themselves with some recipes, right? That doesn't speak to me, and that doesn't speak to a lot of people, right? So it's this generic way of following up, where if you want to advance relationships with your customers, you've got to figure out a way to follow up with them in a way that's very unique and creative, right? So I'm going to leave that with you, and that's like sort of another homework step, is to kind of figure out, how do I follow up with people in a way that's above and beyond the generic approaches. Untangling and advancing could be your new sales cycle. Okay. I think Meredith maybe highlighted to me. Okay, so we're at 11 o'clock, so we've got some time. So I do want to show you this video because this is going to illustrate and drive home this message. And so I want you to enjoy. I've shared my audio, so we shouldn't have any trouble. Just make sure your volume is up for this.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
No, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just... Sometimes it's like there's this achy... I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. Ow. If you would just...
Don't...
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can't go on?
So where did the shift happen in that video? Did you notice the shift happen for the man?
That was brilliant, that video. It, like, what stands out to me, like another analogy, I guess, is like, and this is a little bit less funny, but if you see somebody who like drinks too much, or a drug addict, and you see their life falling apart, and it's like a simple answer of just stop drinking, you know, but it's way more complicated. There's so many more emotions involved Because obviously if it was that logical, you know, it would be an easy answer.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly.
That was really good. I'm like, I have a full book of notes.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my favorite part in that video is when he kind of slows himself down and says, fine, I guess this must be really hard.
Yeah.
Right. And so how many times have we sat in front of like our partner or our friends and had something that we wanted to share, and they're really quick to jump to solutions, and we're like, no, I don't want you to solve my problem, I just want you to listen for a second.
Yeah.
Sometimes our customers are there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think something too that I found to be helpful, and I'm not always good at this, is saying, and I'm better with like friends than in business, but just saying like, hey, are you looking for my advice, or are you just looking for a listening ear? You know, and that tends to help at least me as the recipient, like as the guy in that video. But I struggle with that way more in business than in my personal. Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. And it is hard, you know, we're constantly being, you know, bombarded all day, and we're busy people. And so for us to slow down is difficult, right?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, to your point, Mare, like when we're dealing with customers that, you know, perhaps we haven't qualified as a buyer, this strategy of connection, untangling, and advancing may be a little too advanced for a conversation like that. But if you've qualified your customer and you know that they're like, it's a serious inquiry, and you can pause and take the time to go to these places. I noticed that there's a couple of things in the chat.
Yeah, I just opened it up. Everyone's just saying thank you and how great this was. I will, I actually jotted down a couple questions, but I'll see if we have Kate and Jennifer here. If you guys have questions, do I have you on mute? Let me know if you guys want to pop it in the chat, or if you have any questions. How would you say, so if, oh, it just changed. Does anyone have, no? Okay, I'll ask, how would you recommend then with this kind of, I'll call it like new age sales cycle. So for example, if some of us have some kind of intake form, right? Like that's kind of like step one. What would be some new age sales questions to ask on that form to help arm us with the right information, maybe if we're doing a call after or sending a proposal after or something like that? Are there, you know, what would be like your top 3 questions to include on that form?
Yeah, you know, I think I would want to know if people have attempted to make a change before, and how you word that is up to you, but maybe understanding, you know, how long have you been looking for a solution, and what options have you explored in the past?
Okay.
You give some, that might help you give you some perspective on how deep their ambivalence to change might be, and help you get that customer sort of qualified a bit quicker. Because the last thing I want you to do is spend a lot of time like going back and forth, right?
Yeah.
So really sort of understanding like this, almost like the seriousness of this change, and what have they explored in the past. Maybe it's a scale. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how ready are you for change? That could be, right? Scales are always good for understanding where people are at. Because everyone's going to come to you in a different stage of readiness, I'll call it. Okay. So in the sales world, when we qualify a customer, hey, maybe this could be the next conversation we have as a team, but it's identifying the stages of readiness that your customers are in.
Mm.
And they range from denial, thinking, planning, and action. And there's specific language and keywords that your customers will share with you for you to identify where are they at in their stage of readiness so that you can help them better untangle some of that baggage, some of that stuff, right?
Is there a book or something that you recommend on that?
I'll write it.
Okay.
I was just,
You're going to write the book. Okay.
yeah, I'll write it.
Amazing.
Meredith, there are so many books. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I'm just looking at my shelf right now. If I had to recommend one, hang on, I gotta put my glasses on first. Okay, my favorite book on my shelf right now
Yep.
is, you're gonna laugh at me, but the Starbucks experience.
Oh, okay. I've never even heard of that.
It's a really cool, like, you wouldn't think like it's a sales book, but it's totally this awesome book about business and customer behaviors and customer experience. And yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jennifer has a question in the chat. It says, curious if you could speak to building consistent trust online. Authenticity, yes, but do you have examples of brands that have done it right?
Okay, My Wolf Design has done a great job. Yeah. But no, I mean, if we take a look at Meredith, right, as an example, I think that's a good, segue to look at, how she's built this authentic connection with people. And, if we take a look at people like Meredith, what do they do to build trust with their customers? Well, they show up pretty authentically, right? Showing different facets of their life, family, business. There could be some elements of, showing up a little bit vulnerable. So that's what Brene Brown really explores, is okay to go to a place of vulnerability as long as it's within your comfort zone and it kind of, not stays on brand, but you're not making your audience feel uncomfortable. It's just you're sharing sort of this vulnerability side that, owning and running a business has its set of challenges, and it's okay to share some of those aspects, right? Video is a great opportunity to show your authentic self. And sometimes just showing up as you. I love the brands that, show up, and Amanda Muse is another one who's like a local mother and business owner who shows up very authentically. I mean, most times without makeup. She's at the car drop off with her kids, right? People can build connection with her because they're like, oh, like I see myself in her. Where brands tend to maybe drive a little bit of disconnection is this idealism of perfection, right? That people show up completely perfect and there's no flaws, there's no challenge. So people are not shying away, but they're sort of backing up from those brands a little bit because we're so bombarded with perfection online that sometimes that can drive disconnection.
I think too with that, like, I think we all know perfection doesn't exist. So when somebody tries to create this persona of perfection, it's like, what else are you hiding? What, And so that, at least for me, is where that disconnect is. Like, you've lost all my trust because I know you're hiding all these ugly layers, because that's just real life,
Real life is sometimes like a bit ugly, right?
Right.
It's challenging, right? There are all things that we're up against. There's tons of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, But again, I think, you know, when you read the Starbucks experience, they talk a little bit about that too,
Hmm.
where they really listened to their audience and built a brand around what their customers were truly asking for. And so sometimes it's just, again, pausing,
Yeah.
press the pause button, listen, observe. And I think sometimes, you know, we're in this world where content is king. And so we feel like we've got to put it all out there and make sure it's at the right times and it's the right message and it's the right amount of, you know, funny and emotion, right? There's so many things at play that if we just pause for just a sec and lean into our customers, we can probably do a better job at serving them if we can just, you know, flip some of that and make it very focused on them.
Cool.
Mhm.
Kate, do you have questions?
I don't have any questions right now. I'm gonna have to rewatch this like 2 or 3 times to absorb everything because holy shit, this was really, really informative. So thank you, Nicole.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And yeah, I just the intention statement for me, by the way, I implemented it into a sales role that I was doing a number of years ago. I was skeptical, like someone had introduced it to me and I was like, no, I don't need that. I'm a feature, functions, and benefits salesperson all the way through. I don't need that. I don't need to know empathy. I don't want to connect with people, right? I was very, very hesitant because I sold, you know, what I call widgets. I sold power tools. So what do I need to, you know, have empathy with people, right? And when I started using the intention statement in my business, I was like, I was like irritated that it was working. I was like, oh my gosh, right? But it really does help build this connection like no other. Like you're just, and it's so simple and you have to create it in your own words. It has to sound like you. But when you can really tell someone, look, I'm not here to sell you something. I'm literally here to guide you and be a you know, a consultant to you and give you all the best options that will support you and your business. And, you know, then it, again, it drops the armor and you can have a great conversation.
I have another question, a more application question, just like my intake form one. So actually it was Kate that referred me to a podcast episode all about like the art of the follow-up. And now I'm starting to think that might have been a little bit of an old age sales cycle follow-up. And I know you at one point were writing like a number of blogs with templates and stuff like that. Do you have any resources for us as to what we could refer to for some like really solid follow-ups, like post intake form or post discovery call or whatever that cycle looks like?
A lot of people struggle with follow-up because our conversations are very surface.
Yeah.
So we're focused on, you know, tell me about your business, tell me about your challenges, tell me about this, tell me about that. And we're not slowing down enough to talk about the change. Okay, so I'm going back to change for a second.
Yeah.
So if you were to ask questions like, okay, so, you know, Kate, what if you didn't make this change? You know, what does that look like? What if you stayed where you were and didn't make a change? What does the next year look like for you? Right? It's being able to ask questions that are a little bit more perhaps outside of your comfort zone, perhaps more outside their comfort zone, but it's formulating these questions that are going to get you a more emotionally charged response. And so when we think about follow-up, the reason why we go to the coffee cards and the generic thank you cards is because our conversations are very surface. We don't really know where to go. Other things about them, like the names of their kids, the names of their dog, where they live, where they went to school, what they do for a living outside of their business, right? Like those things that are more intimate details, we can probably do a better job at following up. because we were able to uncover some elements of them as a person.
Yeah.
Versus, honestly, people don't know where to go with follow-up because they're just like, I don't know the person.
Right.
So if we slow down and get to know the people in our pipeline, perhaps we wouldn't struggle so much with follow-up.
Mhm.
This is cool. It's like sitting on my desk. I'm just going to show it to you. It's a little book my colleague made me. It says, skilled enough to become a director of sales and marketing, crazy enough to love it. And I was like, oh,
That's amazing.
so cute, right?
Yeah.
She went online and she made it for me, right? And that is what resonates with people. When you can make something very personal, that resonates with people. So follow should be timely. So don't wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks, wait 24 hours, by the way. Should be timely, it should be specific. So something about your follow-up, this book is very specific. I'm a director of sales, right? So it's very specific to me and it's reciprocal. So when I got it, what did I do? I went, oh my God, thank you so much. Big hugs, that's reciprocal, right? So that's the beauty of follow-up that actually resonates with people, is that it's timely, specific, and reciprocal. If you can get all those three, you're in a good place.
Can you explain what you mean by reciprocal?
Oh, it generates a response, an emotional
Okay.
response. So when I got it, I was like, oh, I was like,
Right.
it made sense to me. I was like, if this had said, well, anything else, like just a generic quote, like a generic, positive quote, I would have been like, oh, it's a cute book, thanks,
Mhm.
But
Right, but it was personal, yeah.
it was very, very personal, right?
So would you recommend asking, sorry, Mara, would
No,
you
you're-
recommend like asking a question that prompts a response then? Like not just yes or no, rather than saying like, hey, just letting you know I still want to work with you. Let me know if you want to. Like, would you recommend actually asking a question?
I mean, yes or no questions can be quite difficult, right? As I think we've all been taught, right? The open-ended question versus the closed question. And to your point, Kate, the follow-up is usually that, right? Where my favorite thing to say is, just checking in is something you say at a hotel, not to a customer. So, but we all, we don't have to be masters of sales. We just have to be masters of people and understand, if you sometimes slow down and go, how would I speak to my girlfriend versus how I speak to a customer? There's a lot of overlap there. And so would I call my girlfriend and say, hey, just checking in? Like, probably not. So that's sort of like a way you can get around it a little bit. I don't know if I really answered your question. I think I bounced around it, but yes or no questions are not really a great idea, but it does take practice.
So based on that, then, like for me, I have a set of automated follow-ups, right? Which, is there any way, because all of a sudden this becomes, I mean, this sounds awful to admit, but like when you deal with a number of leads and everything, you need to automate as much as you possibly can. And so when you start talking about specifics and all of that, that removes the automation. But I guess I'm kind of thinking out loud here. I guess you need to weigh the pros and cons. Like if you want those sales, right? And to help people with their actual problems, we do need to take the time and remove the automated portion of that. Right.
Yeah. And I'm not against, automation because, to your point, Meredith, you're trying to build a business, and this is a business that, puts food on the table and pays the mortgage and like all those things. Right. So, I see the value of automation
Yeah.
sometimes. However, consumers are pretty savvy.
Yeah.
And so consumers know automation and then they know personalization. So when it makes sense, you can maybe pepper in some personal touches. Maybe it's a client that you see like really, really high potential. And so for that one, you're maybe going to remove the automation because I'm going to really dive in
Got
to this
it.
one opportunity. And then maybe for others, it's automation, but maybe there's an
Right.
opportunity for you to like pick.
Yeah. Got it.
Mhm.
Like that.
Another thing you could do, Mare, is like have it be automated, but you have to approve the email so you can add in like a personal detail.
Yeah. Yeah. We use the same system, so we can speak
Yeah.
the same language. I like that.
Yeah.
Nicole, this was like fantastic. I can't wait we had a number of people register. So the topic was really, really a good one. But I think you're right. Like that's just the way you operate. It's always this real life. It's not, people think sales and they think car salesman, and you couldn't be further from that. And I think as business owners, like sales is so much of what we do, whether we want to accept that or not. And so all of these, like I have so much, I already know like my task list for today that I can like improve on some of this stuff. So
Cool.
yeah.
I mean, if you think about the car example, I tend to share this really quick story. So a number of years ago, I transitioned from driving like a company car and I needed to buy my own car, and it had been so long. And so I hadn't really done my homework, but I needed a car pretty quickly. And so when I went to the dealerships, they said, "What do you want?" And I said, "All I need are heated seats and Bluetooth. Everything else, I don't really care." Those two things I need. And it's amazing how the salespeople didn't listen. And they just bounced around it, and all they did was they wanted to feature functions benefit me, and they just wanted to show me all the bells and whistles and how much money I could spend. And I walked out the door. Finally, I went to this other guy, and he said, "What's your budget and what do you want?" And I said, "This is my budget and these are the two things I want." And he goes, "Okay, here's your car." Thank you. Thank you. Because for the first time, someone's actually listened to what I want and didn't try to force me into buying something that I'd maybe have, regret.
Yeah.
So, it's true. Imagine if you were at the car dealership and someone came up to you and said, "Hey, I'm not here to sell you a car today. I just really want to get to know what you're looking for and how I can be a resource and a guide to you to make the best decision for you and your family." What? Huh? Did you get sales training from Nicole? Like, just take the guard down for a sec. Then you can have a conversation about the stuff that you're looking for versus constantly being like, this guy's going to sell me a car I don't want. Right? So.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Kate, did you have any last questions? No, you're good. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again. I'll snag that presentation from you and I'll include that when I send out the replay to everyone.
Sounds good.
And then I'll also include your website because I know you did have some really helpful blogs on there that people can read and apply right away. So thank you. This was fantastic.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.